we are in that point of the off season in the NFL where all of the excitement is finally starting to build back up, and as much as you have the contenders ready to see their season come into play, there are also a number of fan bases that are excited about the guy that they have at the helm. And there's been some discussions lately nationally that sort of sparked the idea for me to run through this list. So I have my list of the top 10 quarterbacks that I would choose to build around if I was a general manager today. So I chose to make this list based off of what they have proven already, what their age and contract situation looks like, and what the long-term upside and belief in them becoming one of the elite quarterbacks in the league is. And starting off here, number 10, I have Brock Purdy. And this is a situation where Purdy has given 49ers fans just about anything they possibly could have asked for and more, considering that he was a 7th-round draft pick a couple years ago, and he's led the 49ers to 2 NFC championships and a Super Bowl. Why is he so low on this list, though? It's because I don't know if I ever see it in Purdy to become one of the elite guys in the league. And he is plenty talented, and he showed that, every opportunity he's really gotten the chance to. But one of the realities of the situation as well is the fact that Purdy has been in just about the best possible situation to walk into in the NFL, from both the head coaching standpoint of having Kyle Shanahan running the show, one of the great innovative offensive minds in the game right now, and skill position players everywhere. George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, who we're going to be talking about later in the show, Christian McCaffrey. So it's just been, and a very good offensive line as well. So Purdy, as much as you have to commend him for how good he's been, I do wonder what it looks like for him when some of the weapons around him are no longer available to him. So I did feel guilty about putting Purdy this low on the list, but I just think that the upside promise of a lot of these other players is too high to pass up on. And that one of those players includes Caleb Williams, who I have at number 9, and I feel like this is going to be a little bit controversial, even though I don't think that it should be. Caleb Williams was somebody who was seen as a potential generational prospect just a year ago, and no, his final season at USC did not go quite as planned, and he wasn't able to follow up on one of the most dominant performances from a quarterback that we saw from Caleb Williams en route to winning the Heisman just a couple seasons ago. But I think that Caleb Williams definitely has I would say that he has to have a lower floor than Purdy, considering what we have seen from Purdy up to this point, and that he's been great from the jump. But Caleb Williams, I'm betting on the upside here, and I think that when you look at the debate between the two of these players in Purdy and Caleb Williams, you have to take into consideration potential. There's a lot more athletic ability with Caleb Williams. I think making the difficult throws he is going to be better at. Purdy is actually probably more mobile than he gets credit for. I thought that he showed that during the playoffs last year, but Caleb Williams just runs laps around him from that perspective as well. One thing I did consider in the debate between him and Purdy, and something that kind of goes against Caleb Williams, is the fact that Caleb Williams, for a lot of NFL fans, if you dislike him, it's because of some of the loud personality that he can have at times. He's very confident in himself. He's due for a couple cheesy lines every once in a while. And, it's even the stupid things, like just the fact that he seems to be ultra aware of the internet and such, and I would say that Caleb Williams is one of these new generation athletes, and the NFL, where it is very traditional and your quarterback has to say this and this, I do think that Caleb Williams sort of jumps outside the lines of what we expect from quarterbacks to some degree. And I do think that it's an overall statement on where we are headed as just a society, and the fact that Caleb Williams is kind of one of these new age quarterbacks. And I am curious to see how that plays out in a locker room. But at the end of the day, I just think the talent is too great there with Caleb Williams that you can mention some of the other stuff, but I think he's just going to be able to prevail in the NFL. He's walking into an incredible situation in Chicago as well that I think is going to help him really develop over these first couple years. And there's a good chance Caleb Williams is going to be much higher on this list in years to come. Number 8, I have Jordan Love. And Love was a little bit of an inspiration for this list. I was at the gym last week and ESPN was on. I couldn't hear it itself, but I was at least following along. And I believe it was Mike Tannenbaum who said that he would choose Jordan Love over any other quarterback in the league to build a franchise around. Now, again, I didn't actually have the audio for this segment, so there might have been some other rules, but I thought that was getting extremely ahead of ourselves, and I am definitely a believer in Jordan Love, that he is a starting caliber quarterback and that he's going to be good for some time, but I'm not ready to put him into these elite conversations just yet after just one season. And I understand you can sort of twist the age factor with Jordan Love in either direction that you would like to. He is 26 years old, so he is a little bit on the older side, despite the fact that he has had such little playing experience in the NFL. So you would think that, he's already kind of rounded out and that he was able to improve, even if he was on the bench for those first couple seasons. He was coming up with Matt LaFleur, so there should be a really good connection between him and the offense that they're running there in Green Bay. And again, I'm in on him, but I'm not ready to put him over some of the other players that have proven so much more than them. And Love is only marginally younger than some of these other quarterbacks that we've seen make multiple conference championships, the playoffs on a regular basis. So I have Jordan Love at 8 on this list. Again, no shame in that, because I do think that we are seeing the rise of this next generation of quarterbacks, and there are a lot of good options, but I do have Love on the lower end of this top 10. Number 7, I have Trevor Lawrence. And I think that I understand that Trevor Lawrence has not been incredible to begin his NFL career. I didn't realize quite how unpopular he was until this summer, making some videos on Lawrence. I understand he has not lived up to expectations up to this point. And while you can blame some really bad circumstances that he walked into his rookie season in the NFL with Urban Meyer and with not a lot of receivers around him, since then the Jaguars have done an incredible job of building a roster around Trevor Lawrence to help him succeed. And I would say for the most part he's been able to do so, but we've seen some flashes, but we have not seen consistency from Trevor Lawrence at a super high-end level. Now, he did pull off an incredible comeback in a playoff game against the Chargers just a couple seasons ago, but he was also a big part in putting them in that hole with some sloppy turnovers then. So Lawrence is in this situation where I believe in the pedigree of him. Going back to Clemson, he was undisputably one of the best talents that I had ever seen in college football, at least myself personally. And I do believe in the long-term effect of Trevor Lawrence, but it's definitely been somewhat underwhelming up to this point. And I had to drop him down further than I really wanted to, just because of the idea of, it's great that you were unbelievable, coming into college as a high school prospect, and then in college he was unbelievable, but got to see something in the NFL at some point. And I just feel better, I think, about the consistency of the players who are ahead of him. And one of the players I was very surprised that I ended up going with is Justin Herbert at number 6, where Herbert also feels like a very polarizing player here. There's obviously that narrative about the fact that, what did Emmanuel Acho call him? A social media quarterback or something along those lines. Justin Herbert can flat out play, and he is a very good quarterback that has been subject to some less than ideal situations. First off, he plays for the Chargers, who are one of the more cursed organizations in the NFL with some of the injuries that he's been dealing with to his receivers. But Justin Herbert, the talent alone, I think the vast majority of teams would take him in a heartbeat. The idea that he was even being shopped around to whatever degree this offseason was crazy to me. But Justin Herbert has definitely not gotten the respect that I think he overall does deserve. He is an incredible talent. Number 5, I have Lamar Jackson, a 2-time MVP already at just 27 years old. And the improvement in the passing game has been tremendous from when he started coming into the NFL. And that's something that I can absolutely buy into, and especially, with the athletic frame that he has, maybe a little bit on the skinnier side, lost some weight this offseason, but, of course, the way that he is the prototypical dual threat. And before it was more so that he was leaning on the running. Now I do believe that he has a more developed arm, and that is going to be a recipe that just about any team can have success with. I have him a little bit lower because to some degree, the passing has gotten a whole lot better, but there has been some concern with his arm in the past. And with my number 4 pick, I maybe am overreacting a little bit to last year, but even going back to college, I have been a big fan of CJ Stroud, and he just put together maybe the most impressive rookie season in NFL history with the stats that he went out there and the records he broke along the way, taking a Texans team that was in no way expected to be in the playoff picture and was more so expected to be at the top of the draft again. But CJ Stroud was unbelievable and carried their offense to new heights. You saw him unlock players such as Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz, who could have been fine pros anyways, but definitely took them to different levels this year. And you just know that, CJ Stroud is a leader, and he is going to be the focal point of this Texans offense for years to come. So again, maybe I don't feel great about putting him over Lamar Jackson, who, for whatever it's worth, Lamar beat CJ Stroud in the playoffs this past year, but wins are not a quarterback stat in my eyes. Lamar Jackson was on a much superior Ravens team. He's also 27 in comparison to CJ Stroud, who is just 23. So ultimately, I feel good, not great, about having Stroud at 4. Number 3, I have Joe Burrow. I think that he is probably the second best quarterback in the NFL today. The reason I have him at number 3 is because of the idea of an injury history. Now, it's one of those things that I've talked about in the past. I do feel like it gets overblown to some degree because it's not this one injury that is a glaring concern for Joe Burrow, but he's had a lot of freak accidents just sort of roll up on him. Obviously, the hit that had him tear just about everything in his knee his rookie year. This past season, having a calf strain in preseason, and then ultimately the wrist thumb injury that took him out for the rest of the year. Non-related, maybe the calf and the knee injuries were a little bit related, but I do think that Joe Burrow is going to be healthy, but it is one of those things that you can point to and have concerns with. So that was the slight difference maker for me putting together this list, because number 2, I have Josh Allen. And I would argue that Allen definitely puts himself in harm's way a lot more than Joe Burrow in terms of putting himself in position to be injured. So maybe, again, it was so close for me between these two players. I think they're the second and third best quarterbacks in the NFL. I have Joe Burrow slightly better, but Josh Allen, I think he has the physical frame to be durable and to stay athletic for the remainder of his career. I think that we are seeing him add layers to his game the way that we talked about yesterday on the show. I feel like he is able to now strategically, methodically put together drives more so than he was early in his career when it was more home run or bust. But again, I think you can go either way with Allen and Burrow at number 2. Number 1, though, is Patrick Mahomes, and it's really no surprise here. He is going into his age 29 season here, has not hit 30 yet, and I still feel like despite how much older, he is the oldest player on this list. Burrow and Allen both headed into age 28 seasons, but ultimately with Mahomes, I still feel just as good about him playing the next 10 years as well as anybody else on this list. Now, Father Time would probably disagree with that take, but at the same time, Mahomes, I'm just betting on him until I go broke at this point. And that was sort of my philosophy at points here during the most recent playoffs. I learned that when I thought that the Ravens were going to beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, but Mahomes is just always seeming to find a way to make the big play at the end of the game to put them over the edge. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes, already a 3-time Super Bowl champion, and is probably going to add more to his collection by the time that he's done. But a couple quick names that I did not include on this list. I didn't include Dak Prescott and Tua Tagovailoa. Those are probably the two that I contemplated at least the most. Dak is headed into his age 31 season. Not somebody that has ever... Last year, he was runner-up in MVP, and he was very impressive. I think that he is somebody who is unquestionably a top 10 quarterback that gets a lot of disrespect from the national media because he has a little bit of that Cowboys tax to him from a PR perspective. But at the same time, he's not somebody that I would hand the keys to my franchise over to. Very little contractual control over him going into his final season of his contract, and is going to be a free agent that gets 50 plus, maybe even $60 million by next year. So, and I don't know if he is that level of player who can elevate a mediocre offense over the top. And I would say that the Cowboys have done him pretty good justice in terms of the pieces that he's been surrounded with, the offensive line he's been playing behind, the rush attack up until this past season. But I left out him, and I left out Tua, who we are going to be diving into a little bit more later in this show when we dive into the Miami Dolphins season preview. But before we get into that, we are going to be taking a break here, and we have to react to the breaking news that San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk has officially requested a trade. It has been rumored for a lot of this offseason. He's been putting out some cryptic messages about him wanting to be moved, and now he has officially made these statements. So we're going to be diving into all of that. But first, a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.